classmates and to our instructor, Sir Romel Salvador Alvarez. I am Ricky William Boton Pilarian and currently a third-year civil engineering student. Last March 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic terrorized our whole world, with over millions of deaths being recorded. In response to this, we are forced to shift into an online learning in order for us to continue our studies in the midst of this pandemic. As we are suddenly in an online setting, every one of us, including the teachers and professors, are forced to adjust in this type of setting. For me as a student, in order for me to adjust in this online learning mode, I have been forced to maintain a load in my cell phone just to access the portal since we don't have available Wi-Fi in our vicinity. Even though it's quite hard to adjust in this type of setting, as I am a student who requires constant teaching of a professor and not just once or twice a week, and forced to self-learn just to understand the lessons. I did adjust myself and change my past lifestyle just to adjust in this online learning due to this pandemic. As for my favorite color, I quite like blue, or sky blue to be more specific, as it brings calmness in my mind whenever I look at it. Also, it reflects my personality as a calm person whenever a problem arises, as to find an easiest way to deal with it. As I am a civil engineering student, and this subject, which is hydrology, is included on the list of subjects that are needed to be taken, I would like to take this opportunity to gain sufficient or even more knowledge that would be greatly beneficial to me when I would apply it to my work in the near future. I hope that with the aid of the professor, I will be able to exert effort needed to achieve those goals that I wanted to achieve in this subject. Evapotranspiration, or also known as EP, is a term used to define a combined process of two separate processes named evaporation and transpiration in a land that has a vegetation, wherein water is lost from the land surface through evaporation and the rising water from plants called transpiration. Evapotranspiration is also responsible for about 15% of the water vapor present in the atmosphere and plays a vital role in occurrence of precipitation. Evaporation and transpiration simultaneously occur, so there is no simpler way of examining between the two processes. In addition to the amount of water available on topsoil, the amount of evaporation from the crop soil depends mainly on the proportion of solar radiation reaching the soil surface. As crops grow and crop tops cover more and more areas of land, this ratio decreases during the growing season. When crops are small, water is lost mainly through evaporation from the soil. But once the crops are well developed and completely cover the soil, the transpiration becomes the main process. In Figure 1, evapotranspiration is divided into two, which is evaporation and transpiration, that is expressed by the leaf area per unit of soil surface below it. At the time of planting, almost 100% of evapotranspiration comes from evaporation, while on the total crop coverage, more than 90% of evapotranspiration comes from transpiration. Although excessive evaporation loss can kill plants and animals, evaporation is important to living things because it is a cooling process. Image 1 shows the process involving evapotranspiration. There are a lot of factors that can affect the rate of evapotranspiration that is taking place. These factors include the amount of radiation emitted by the sun, vapor pressure in the atmosphere, temperature, wind, and moisture of the soil, solar radiation that is absorbed by the atmosphere, as well as the heat that is being exuded by the earth, results in the increase of temperature in the air. As temperature increases, the rate of evapotranspiration that takes place also increases. Transpiration increases as warmer temperature allows the plants to open up their stomata and release additional water vapor, while evaporation also increases as there is a higher value of available energy that can help in converting the liquid into water vapor. As for the air and wind movement, Greater air movement around the plants will result in a higher rate of transpiration. The wind moves the air and as a result, the saturated air near the leaves is replaced by drier air. Study shows that evaporation plays the biggest part in the amount of water lost from the soil during the growth of a crop. With regards to this study, it is important to account the estimated rate of evapotranspiration in planning the irrigation schemes. There are two types of evapotranspiration, and these types are the potential evapotranspiration, or other known as PET, and the actual evapotranspiration, or also known as AET. Potential evapotranspiration is a measure of the atmosphere's ability to remove water from the surface through evaporation and transpiration without controlling the water supply. On the other hand, actual evapotranspiration is the amount of water actually removed from the surface due to the process of evaporation and transpiration. There are different methods in determining the estimated evapotranspiration. These methods included the tanks and lysimeter experiments, field experimental plots, installation of sunken or other known as Colorado tanks, evapotranspiration equations as developed by Laurie Johnson, Penman, Thornwaite, and Blaney Gradle, and lastly, the evaporation index method, or also known as pan evaporation data, as developed by Harg, Reeves, and Christensen. The following image shows the different methods of estimating evapotranspiration. Now that I am done explaining, let's watch a video that will help us in supplementing our knowledge regarding evapotranspiration.
Heating by sunlight is the source of energy for all changes in the weather. This heat evaporates water from oceans, lakes, and earth and changes it into water vapor. The sun heats the earth and the oceans and lakes, and it causes the vapor to rise. As it rises, it cools and condenses and makes all the clouds that we see in the skies. All the clouds have been formed 'cause the land and sea were warmed, and the vapor goes up with the air. And you know that water evaporates when you see those clouds up there.
Evaporation and condensation,
the water cycle,
followed by precipitation,
the water cycle, the never-ending cycle is taking place all the time and everywhere. The rain and the hail and the sleet and the snow falling down on the land and the sea fill the lakes and the ponds and the rivers that flow to the oceans continually. And the heat-giving sun just repeats what it has done, and the vapor goes up with the air. And you know that water can circulate when you see those clouds up there.
Evaporation and condensation,
the water cycle,
followed by precipitation,
the water cycle, the never-ending cycle is taking place all the time and everywhere.
To further strengthen our knowledge regarding evapotranspiration, let's have another video.
Evapotranspiration sounds kind of complicated, but it's actually really simple. It's basically just all the water that's lost from the surface of the land. And this loss happens through two processes. 1, evaporation, and 2, transpiration. Hence, evapotranspiration. Anyway, let's look at the evapo part. Evaporation happens when solar radiation from the sun heats up all the water particles on the land surface. So here's a water particle and another water particle, and these two are joined together by a hydrogen bond, represented by the H. When the water particles heat up, they gain more kinetic energy, and this makes them vibrate more. The vibrating breaks the hydrogen bonds holding them together, and they become free. They bounce off each other with a lot of energy, and so they become a gas. This can therefore be described as water loss from the surface of the land, because the water is technically no longer on the surface of the land. It's floating about in its gaseous form of water vapour in the surrounding air. Now let's look at the transpiration part. Those of you who study biology will know that, in its simplest form, transpiration is basically just water loss from plants. So, very simply, the plant takes up water from the soil through its roots, and this water gets pulled up the plant to be used in lots of different processes inside the plant. Later, the water evaporates from the leaves of the plant, or in this case it's a cactus, so the stem, in the form of water vapour, which is a gas. So you can see that this is another form of water loss from the surface of the land, because the water is now a gas, water vapour, and it's in the air, not on the land. So finally, evapotranspiration is just both of these processes put together. It's the total amount of water lost through evaporation plus the total amount of water lost through transpiration added together, and that number is your evapotranspiration. Thank you for watching, and I really hope this helped you.
That would be all in this report. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.